God Bless Football is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Stugotz, Mikey.
Sir.
God bless football.
God bless football. God bless Tua.
Yeah, man. It happened again, unfortunately. It was a rough night as it was headed into it. And then we saw it. We saw what everyone's been worried about with Tua happen again on the field. We saw his hands do the thing again when he went down. I think everyone immediately knew that it was a concussion. And you know, it wasn't a great game for him to begin with. He had 3 picks. Now, granted, one of them was off of a deflection, and then the other one seemed like it was a confusion on the play.
First two not his fault. The last one was his fault, obviously. So, but
yeah, the last one was
right,
just a poor decision.
Yes.
And I think we saw what some of us were worried about with Tua when he said that he was dropping weight. He wanted to be more mobile. He wanted to run. He had a couple scrambles last night, and then the one where he gets injured, he just takes off and runs. He gets the first down, and then, you know, instead of sliding, he just goes head first into Damar Hamlin's chest and concusses himself, really. It wasn't even like a nasty play. It wasn't a dirty hit. It was just not a great decision, and here we are again.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that it's Damar Hamlin's chest that his head is crashing into, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, no, because one of the things Tua worked on 2 off seasons ago was not going head first, was learning how to slide and slide correctly. And you're right, Billy. He is more nimble. He is he was, at least through the first 2 games, a guy who made some moves out of the pocket that, quite frankly, you haven't seen from Tua. But last night, head first right into Damar Hamlin, and it begs the question of whether or not I don't think we'll see Tua for the remainder of this year, and I am not certain we'll see Tua ever play quarterback again. I think Tua will want to play quarterback again, but I'm guessing family members, they want Tua to be healthy. They want Tua to be there long term. They want Tua to leave a good, productive life. And I would imagine family members today, Billy, are telling Tua, hey, that's it. Like, enough. Let's move on.
I mean, it's early, right? It just happened last night, so we still don't have the extent of it. We know it was a diagnosed concussion. In a lot of instances at this point, you say, okay, well, it's a Thursday, then you have 10 days until the next game. But this obviously is not a situation, I think, where many people are thinking he will be back playing next week, or maybe should be playing back next week. I was talking to some people yesterday, and just fans, not like, anyone in the medical fields or anything, that were saying like, well, that probably is not going to come back before the bye week, which is, I think, 4 more games and then the bye week. It's like the end of October. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. The time frame on this one's going to be interesting. And, not to immediately make it about football, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Dolphins handle this situation, both for Tua's health and for, their own season. Because, people are talking, okay, Ryan Tannehill's out there. Is this going to be where Tannehill signs? There was a Tannehill to Green Bay speculation when Jordan Love got hurt. Then every crazy Dolphin fan is like, well, Tom Brady, Stephen Ross is already talking to him again.
It's a fair thought, by the way.
What's that?
It's a fair thought. It's fair for people to think that. I mean,
it unfortunately, you start thinking, well, how do we salvage this season? Because it felt look, it's week 2, but yesterday was a devastating game for the Dolphins, right? Yes. They play the Bills, who they cannot beat, and that game was going exactly like that again. Before the injury, it was not going great for the Dolphins regardless. They were down by 21 points. They were getting blown out at home, which, as we talk to Golic later this episode, we'll talk about the importance of winning home games against your division, especially this early in the season. But yeah, last night was probably about as bad as a game the Dolphins could have had, both on and off the field. Things went terribly for them yesterday.
We will have Mike Golic on, as Billy mentioned, Chris Sims as well. Carl Douglas going to join us to talk about what happened with Tyreek Hill. There's a reason we do not ask them about what happened last night with Tua, and that reason is we recorded with them all before last night's game. So that is the reason. We'll see what happens with Tua.
By the way, if you want to compete against us in fantasy, go to dkng.co/lebatard. It's the God Bless Football Fantasy weekly contest presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly.
God bless football, Billy Gill.
God bless football, Mikey A.
God bless football, Mike Golic. God bless football, Stugotz, and one and all.
I have a question for the group and the class here, and it's based on what Stugotz just said. I feel like at this point in the week, I don't even want to laugh at Notre Dame anymore. I feel like Mike has heard it from everyone. I feel like it's just rude at this point. Like, they're on to this next week here. We don't need to like go back and talk about NIU, right?
Listen, it's more my son Mike who takes these losses still really, really hard. I move on. You know what? I was at the game. I watched the game. I was bummed at the loss, and I move on. I mean, listen, what can you say about the game? NIU outplayed them. I mean, Marcus Freeman said, hey, between coaches and players, we probably read the clippings too much. You got basically caught with your pants down, and it may cost you. Now, again, they have a long season to go. You have a 12-team playoff, but you know what? I don't even worry about that right now. I worry about this team playing a solid game like they did against Texas A&M and didn't do against NIU. You got to find consistency. They take on Purdue, and let's just get a win. Let's get a win and start to progress. I was just hoping in that NIU game that they would pull off a win, a 1-point win, a 3-point win, a 7-point win, and just move on, because as we talked about, other big name schools just barely got by some small name schools. That's a week 2. That's kind of what happens. You just find a way, but Notre Dame did not find a way, and all the credit goes to Northern Illinois.
Billy, I know what's happening here. You and I have discussed it. It's why college football has been ruined by a 12-team playoff. He knows he still has a shot of getting into the playoffs. That's why he's not crushed.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, but
it helps, Mike.
Listen, I mean, I love a 12-team playoff. And yes, does it help Notre Dame now that they had this one bad loss? Yes, it does. But I still think a 12-team playoff was better for college football anyway.
Mike, here's the thing, and perhaps I was wrong on this, because you have a game tonight, Arizona and Kansas State. You have some games over the weekend, I think Missouri and BC.
BC, yeah.
So there are more games that mean more, if that kind of makes sense, because there is a 12-team playoff. But if Kansas State or Arizona gets into the 12-team playoff, I don't see them going very far in a 12-team playoff. It's not like either of those two teams, in my opinion, have a chance of winning a national championship.
No, they don't. The more you make the playoffs, obviously, the more teams you are in it that don't have a chance. But it's still the playoffs, and it's still like you never know what can happen. And it still can help with recruiting and help with raising money in the collective for the NIL if you're a playoff team. You know, all that can go to the positive. I get what you're saying. It's hard to think a 12th or 11th or a 10th-ranked team will have a shot, but you never know. You never know, and that's the beauty of sports. And now where people say it'll ruin the regular season, I don't think it will, because before it was teams like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were fighting for that 4th spot. Now It's going to be, teams, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 fighting for that 12th spot.
Mike, I hate to compare it to the NFL, but with a 12-team playoff, it's kind of the same thing. How long until making the playoffs isn't going to be enough for certain coaches, and making it is not good enough. Now you have to actually go farther.
Bounced out in the first round, right?
Exactly. Well, it depends on the team, right? It depends on the blue blood of the team.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Listen, they got to the playoffs a couple of times, and they got knocked out in the first round of it. I would say a lot depends on where you're seated. If you're Notre Dame and you're seated 5, 6, 7, 8. Especially 5, 6, which I don't know if they will be now, unless they would run the table. It'd still be tough to get a first round win. But I think it all depends on the team. Like Kansas State, Arizona. Hey, you're happy to get there, right? Because it's a 12 team, you got there. But if you start getting there consistently, then you have to show more progress. Just like for the Detroit Lions, they got to the NFC Championship game. Well, next year, this year, it's the next step. Now you win it, you go to the Super Bowl. You always try and take that next step and not be satisfied with where you got.
Mike, I said earlier this week that rare do we have a coach on a hot seat where the coach is hotter than the seat he's sitting on. Should Marcus Freeman, he's a good-looking guy. Yeah. Should Marcus Freeman be on some sort of hot seat, Mike? What do you think?
Man, I hope not. But 2 years ago, his first year, he lost to Marshall. It's and he understands. Listen, everybody loves the guy. He's a great guy. He's a great recruiter, but he even understands The bottom line is you have to win. And when you're at Notre Dame, you have to be fighting for the national championship because you're not in a conference. So third year, is he on the hot seat? Let's let it play out. It was a bad game that they lost to Northern Illinois, but it was a good game they won at Texas A&M. So I still think he has more time before you really say he's on a hot seat.
Just going over to the NFL here, Mike, what do you make of all the conversation of training camp, the importance of training camp? Peyton Manning talked about it as it relates to Brandon Ayuk. A lot, Troy Aikman said the quarterback play was disgusting in week 1, and it wasn't great. And he's right. I don't know if that has to do with training camp. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the touchdown passes were basically cut in half from week 1 last year, or I believe week 1 to this year. Now, you have some things that will affect that. You have 3 rookie quarterbacks, so you didn't expect much out of them. You had 4 or 5 quarterbacks coming off of major injuries, and so really knocking off the rust in week 1. And then you had some average play by quarterbacks. So to go into training camp, the starters don't barely play in the preseason anymore. The basically you have practices together. They'll practice for 2 days and then play a preseason game. And in practice, I like the practices basically for every position but the quarterback, because the quarterback can't get hit in those practices. It's not live for the quarterback. It's live for everybody else, but it's not live for the quarterback. They have no threat of getting hit, and they know they're not getting hit. There's something about the guts you have to stand in there when you know you're not going to get tattooed. So, and then they don't play a lot in the preseason games. Hell, look at Cincinnati. Zach Taylor as a head coach is 1-10 in his time in Cincinnati in the first 2 games of the season. They don't play anybody in the preseason. They don't get work in with the first team in the preseason, and it shows they're not prepared. So there's just not enough hitting that goes on in the preseason and not enough live tackling. You miss tackles. And with the quarterback, like I just said, the quarterback position, preseason, they barely play. Practices, it's not live for them. So they're less prepared.
How do we solve that? Like, what's the fix for the NFL? Because they're not going to play more in the preseason. Then they add a game to the end of the year. It seems like these first 2 weeks are basically preseason games that count for teams.
There's no fix because the players got it in the deal to have no two-a-days. OTAs are less strenuous than they've been before. And there's only 1 padded practice a day. You can't go 2. So that's not going to change. And I don't think that coaches are going to start playing their starters more in the preseason. And that's going to get cut down again. It's going to go to an 18 game schedule, and it's going to go to 2 preseason games. So you're going to get more teams practicing against one another, which I said is fine for other positions, but not fine for the quarterback because they're not facing live bullets.
It's not going to stop teams and fan bases from panicking after 2 weeks.
No.
Is there anybody who should be?
Well, yeah, the old panic after the first week. Well, I mean,
Packers.
Panic's a relative term because of situation. Packers, Jordan Love being hurt. Now, he's not going on IR. They're seeing about week to week. But this is when you trust your backup quarterback. Like, remember when Dak went out for 5 games, Cooper Rush came in and went 4-1 in those 5 games, kept their head above water. That's a backup's job. Keep your team's head above water while you're treading water until your quarterback gets back. Can Malik Willis do that? I have no idea. And how much time will Jordan Love miss? And how much of a hole do you fall into if you lose games? And then there's the situation in Carolina where you have though you gave away a lot on defense, you tried to build up offensively around your quarterback, and it's still horrible. So it's like there's no improvement from whether it's game 1 to game 2 or year 1 to year 2. So there's different factions in should you feel like there's a panic button. Is there panic in Chicago? Because Caleb Williams, who got so built up, oh my God. And I was not one of them. I was like, this is preseason, man. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. And everybody was ready for him to go off. And he looked wide-eyed out there, which was a little bit shocking. But again, you're going against, going live for basically the first time. You got a little bit of time in preseason, but basically live going for the first time. And it showed. So it's different variations for different teams on whether you're panicking. But overall, I rarely panic after 1 week.
It is time for this week's edition of Stugotz, presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. College football, week 3, 3-5 last week, 8-8 on the season. Week 3, here we go. Arizona, Kansas State, Friday night football. Arizona +7 at Kansas State. I like Arizona here. Kansas State wins the game. Arizona covers, buy it up to 7.5. Kansas State wins by 4 points at home. Arizona with the cover. We go to Missouri. Good game. 2 ranked teams. A lot of people like Missouri. BC +17 at Missouri. Missouri wins the game. BC covers. Missouri by 8 points at home. Notre Dame, bounce back week, -10 at Purdue. Buy it down to 9.5 points. Notre Dame wins and they cover. Notre Dame by 14 points on the road. Oregon State taking on Oregon. Already? We're already doing it? All right. Oregon State +17 at Oregon. I'm not certain about Oregon, and I have no idea about Oregon State. When I'm not certain about a team and I have no idea about the other team, I take the other team. Oregon State, they'll lose the game, but Oregon will win the game. Oregon State will cover. Oregon by 6 points at home over Oregon State. Big one for Billy. FAU, FIU. Oh, the rivalry. Can't believe it. Sorry, Billy.
Shoot the ball.
FIU to beat FIU. FAU -5. They win. They cover. FAU by 14 points at home. And finally, Oklahoma -13.5 taking on Tulane. The Sooners win. They cover. Oklahoma by 21 points at home. NFL week 2. I was 5-3 a week ago. Off to a good start. We'll take it. Ravens -8 taking on the Raiders. Ravens win. They cover. Ravens by 14 points at home. I think the Ravens are the second best team in the NFL. They're 0-1. Cowboys -6 taking on the Saints. The Cowboys win. They cover. Cowboys by 14 points at home. Colts -3 at the Packers. Malik Willis, get out of here. They should have signed Ryan Tannehill. They did it. The Colts, Anthony Richardson, the greatest quarterback to only start 18 games in the history of football. Colts win and cover. Colts -2.5 because you're going to buy down a half point. The Colts win by 4 points on the road. Jets, bounce back week. Mikey A is going to hate me. They're 3.5 point favorites at Tennessee. Why? Because the Jets are good. That's why. I still believe in them. Buy down to 3, though. Okay? I only believe in them at 3, not 3.5. The Jets at the Titans. Jets -3. Jets win by 8 points on the road. Seahawks at New England. Patriots, no. Seahawks -3. Sneaky good team. I'm taking Seattle here. They win. They cover the Seahawks by 7 points on the road. Tampa +7.5. Taking on Detroit. Big game this weekend. Detroit wins. Tampa covers. Buy it up to 8. Detroit by 4 points over the Bucs at home. Jacksonville taking on Cleveland. Buy it down a half point. Jacksonville is a 3-point favorite. The Browns stink. They do. Deshaun Watson, awful. Jacksonville wins. They cover. Jacksonville by 10 points. Steelers -2 at Denver. Revenge game for Russell Wilson, who's not even starting for the Steelers. I'm taking the Steelers anyway. I don't believe in Bo Nix, and I can't stand Sean Payton. The Steelers win by 14 points on the road. And finally, there's no way Sam Darnold's good. I'm not buying it. I don't care what anyone tells me, and I know San Francisco is good. The Niners, -5 at Minnesota. San Francisco wins. They cover. The Niners by 21 points over Sam Darnold. How about that? Those are the picks, everyone. Good luck. Our friend Carl Douglas, one of the great attorneys here in America, is going to join us. He's in L.A. right now. He has his Rams hat on. It looks like he's going to play golf when he's done with us, but we wanted to bring Carl on to talk about what happened with Tyreek Hill last week before the Dolphin game. Before we get to that, though, I was privy to a wonderful conversation where Carl Douglas was giving the stages of parenthood to one Mikey A. Carl, can you give your stages of the advice you gave Mikey A? Please give it to me, Billy, and the rest of the audience, because I think it's great advice.
Thank you so much, Stugotz, for having me. It's always a pleasure being with you and my buddies at Meadowlark. I was telling Mikey A, who has two boys, because I've raised a boy myself, and his two boys are 8 years old and 5 years old. And I was telling Mikey A, right now, he is the king for those two boys.
Yep.
I remember my son would start clapping and shouting whenever he would hear me coming into the garage. So Mikey A, right now, they are just, you're the king. However,
It's wonderful.
wait until they turn about 12.
Oh, yeah, Carl, you tell them.
And once they turn about 12, just remember you love those motherfuckers. Because they're going to test you, man.
Oh, boy.
No, he's
My
right.
son-
Because,
You want to just write that down?
Yo, Carl is right. Those motherfuckers become
Remember
evil.
You love the motherfuckers.
Right.
They're going to test you.
Yeah.
And my son is 31, and the light is just now coming on.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's good
a long
advice.
time.
He's right, though. I mean, so you got about 4 years left, Mike, of being the king. That's about it.
I'm going to enjoy it.
You should.
I'm going to try.
It's a great time of life, Mikey.
Yes.
Enjoy it, and then the other stage will come, my brother.
Yep.
Is this just a boy problem, or does this happen with girls as well, Carl?
No, girls are different. Girls are much more disciplined.
Yeah.
Stugotz will tell you there may be other kind of problems, but they're much more disciplined in that teenage years than boys are.
Yes.
Boys, I'm told, have the judgment of someone with a traumatic brain injury until they turn 30 years old.
Yeah. He's right about that, Bill.
Oof.
I mean, with girls, it is different. I'm still king with my girls, and my girls take care. I have no doubt that if I need either of my daughters, they will drop whatever it is they are doing, and they will find their way to me somehow, some way. Boys, not the same. Not the same.
I'd have to pay his ass to come and help me out.
That's exactly right. The girls would volunteer. You're right.
Yeah.
But remember, Carl, you love those motherfuckers, okay?
But you got to remember that. You got to keep reminding yourself
Right.
of that because they will test you.
Yes, they will test you. Carl, there's no easy transition for this out of Parenthood to Tyreek Hill, but I am wondering, as you saw that video of Tyreek Hill being pulled over by the cops before a Dolphin game, as you saw that video play, Carl, what were your thoughts?
There were two things that came to mind, Stugotz, and both of them can be true. One, Tyreek was a bit of a jerk himself, sort of the hubris of being a well-paid athlete right outside of the stadium. Come on, man, just give me the ticket so I go on my way. Not rolling the window down, normal things that you would expect that a lawful citizen who's not a star wide receiver would do. But at the same time, the officer overreacted and used excessive force, and it was clear. Cops are trained to deal with motorists who sometimes are uncooperative or sometimes are jerks. And you saw the power dynamic that is unfortunately so much of the part of old school police officers. When I tell you to do something, you do it. Pulling him down to the ground just to exert his dominance and power. And Stugotz, I'm going to say it. I dare say if it had been a fair-skinned athlete in the same circumstance, I'm not certain that the exercise of power would have been the same way. And it is regrettable that still in 2024 in America, I'm still not certain that if it had been the kicker or one of the linemen in that same circumstance, that there would not have been a far different reaction and response from the officer. Because when this black kid was a jerk, the officer overreacted, and regrettably, the other officers that were also there didn't step in. they have an obligation as well because they protect and serve to step in and tell the cop to chill out or to relax or to try to de-escalate. When they saw Calais Campbell coming on, putting him in handcuffs was, again, another sign of their misuse of their power and authority, regrettably, with a racial tinge added on top.
Carl, when Tyreek Hill says, I wanted to keep my window up because the people who were driving by were trying to take photos of me, and I didn't want those photos out there, what do you say to that?
He was speeding.
Right.
He was violating the law, and his obligations were to the officer who was then. Now, I don't know, Stugotz, why there had to be 3 cops that were there on motorcycles. It wasn't that big of a deal. Give me a break.
Right. They're working the Dolphin game, just so you know. They're working the Dolphin game, working at that spot. I've seen them there before.
Fair enough. But he violated the law, man. And so you have to accept the consequences of the circumstances of your own actions. When the cop, when he said, stop banging on my window, that was a jerk move, I thought. He didn't have to say that because clearly there had to be some interchange, some conversation to make sure he's not intoxicated. If he's driving recklessly and speeding, that might create a danger. But at the same time, the exercise of power that the cop exerted, to me, was excessive. His suspension was appropriate. I doubt that he will be fired. I'm not sure that Tyreek really needs to file a lawsuit because he has garnered the goodwill of most of America on his side. It's not unusual that the police union would back their cops. They do so in every instance. That's what they're there for. Just like the Player Association would probably back Tyreek. But certainly both sides could have reacted and responded differently, and I think the result would have been different.
Carl, explain to people why the cops want your window to be down, especially a tinted window. They're afraid that the person, they don't know who this person is yet. They should have known. They didn't know who he was. I'm assuming they're afraid that he's going for a weapon, right?
In most states, Stugotz, the driver's window cannot be blackened because it creates a risk and danger to police officers. Every police officer has a story that they've been told of a seemingly innocent traffic stop turning deadly. Cops will say the most important thing that you have to do when you approach a car is to watch the person's hands. That's why you're always trained and told to keep your hands on the steering wheel, to not reach for the glove compartment until the cop gets there, because the ability to see the hands is the source of danger or safety to a police officer. So if the windows that are blackened are up and the cop is not able to see while he's writing a ticket or being distracted, he is in a position of vulnerability that is not in his best interest. So I understand his acceptance or his insistence that the driver roll the window down while I'm talking to you.
What'd you make of if you watch the entire video there, one cop realizes, this is Tyreek Hill. This is one of the Dolphins' best players, and someone just yells out because they knew that they were going to get dragged. The cops knew they were about to get dragged, and that seems to me if they knew it was Tyreek Hill, they would have just let him go on his way and get to the game, which doesn't sit well with a lot of people either, Carl.
That is, for better or for worse, Stugotz, a reality of life in America. Celebrities, athletes get better seats at restaurants. They do get treated differently. It is fundamentally unfair. I suspect if the first officer had realized, because he had run the plates, for example, and before reaching the front window realized Tyreek Hill was right there, right outside the stadium, and recognized him, he was, hey, man, Tyreek, come on, man, take it easy, slow down, you're being a risk, and let him go on into the game. So certainly, and that would have been, while unfair, a consequence, which is a benefit of celebrity, just like if he had seen that J-Lo was driving that car recklessly, he probably would not have given J-Lo a ticket and let her go on her way because he had that kind of discretion.
Right.
However, because Tyreek had an attitude about tapping my window and he was not subservient or sufficiently respectful to the authority of the badge, that will annoy a cop as soon or as quick as anything.
Carl, if you were advising Tyreek, you'd tell him, let's just end it here.
Yeah. Certainly, it is distressing to be pulled from the car, to be placed on the ground, to be handcuffed, to be forced down and forced into a seated position. That is indeed a distressful event. But for Tyreek Hill, on balance, he'll be able to squeeze whatever goodwill he'll be able or seek to squeeze from this consequence.
And he needs it.
And he needs it.
Yep.
More than he needs the money or any money, or more than he needs to have himself draped in a formal lawsuit. Because clearly, for the most part, I think, Stugotz, the winds of public opinion are in his favor.
Yes.
The officer has been immediately put on leave, which basically suggests that someone recognizes he overreacted. So Tyreek is probably going to enjoy the best goodwill, and I think his goodwill would be enhanced were he choosing to not sue and say, I love the cops. I want to be a cop. There are some bad apples. I hope he learns from this experience. Let's go on and let's win Dolphins.
Right. It's hard to do that. You can't do that. And he's trying to do that while saying the officer should be fired. Like, that doesn't.
That's Drew talking, I think.
Yeah, I guess.
That's Drew trying to keep the.
So what if Tyreek says to you, Carl, I'm not looking for your opinion here. I'm looking for you to represent me. Would you take this case, and how would you try in a minute, right?
In a New York minute.
Right, of course, yes.
Of course, it's Tyreek Hill. Are you kidding me?
Right.
He is wrong.
Right. No, okay, so how would you go about that case? Like, how would you try it?
Well, first, it would never be tried. You only try your tough cases, Stugotz. This one, the video says it all.
Right.
Just because I'm a jerk doesn't mean I'm a threat to anybody with three officers standing there with their hands on their guns. They reacted because he was an uppity young black kid with too much money driving a fancy car who broke the law. But the consequence breaking the law is still the presumption of innocence. You don't pull me out of the car because I don't roll my window down. That is excessive.
See, Carl, that's the problem. Carl, that's the problem for me, because we've all been pulled over, right? We're in a rush to get somewhere, and that's the reason we're speeding probably in the first place, okay? Why can't they? And a cop's job is to de-escalate these situations. He's approaching your car. You're already nervous. You're in a rush. You know you're getting a ticket. Why can't the conversation simply be, hey, I was speeding, busted, you got me. Give me the ticket. Let me move on with my day.
Because I've been a cop for 25 years, Stugotz.
Yeah.
And when I say jump, you ask me how high. You don't say I don't want to jump.
Right.
I've been a cop with a gun. What I like are other cops and guns. I don't like a young black kid floyding my authority, telling me to just do my job so I can get on with it, trying to talk down to me, refusing to follow my commands when I am the epitome of authority in this moment. So I'm going to teach you, young black kid, a lesson. I'm not going to take this gruff from you like this. I'm going to show you who's the boss. He said it. When I tell you jump, you better jump. Don't ask me why I should be jumping. And regrettably, that is all too often the thoughts, the feelings, and the attitudes of middle-aged, 20-year-plus police officers who are not prepared to adjust to the new realities that are preferable for policing, where de-escalation should be on your first mind and not the imposition of your authority. And that's the problem, Stugotz. 25-year-old cop, he's been doing it the same way for 24 of those years.
Right. It's so funny. You read the cop, Billy, he's a DJ part-time?
No.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
It's so Miami. It's great. It's
Trying to make some scratch.
By the way, Billy would love if the kicker for the Dolphins got pulled over. He would want him thrown in jail and throw away the key. I mean, you know, like
he's on my
Jason
fantasy
Sanders.
team. I love that guy.
You love Jason Sanders. You can't love Jason Sanders. If he's on your fantasy team, you don't love him, Carl.
Wait, Carl, so you would take the case, it would never get to court, you would plea it out. How much money would Tyreek be getting? How did that work out? How would that work out?
Stugotz in sportscasting, 2 + 2 is 4.
Yeah.
Billy, and your mic work, 2 + 2 is 4. In law, 2 + 2 is somewhere between 3 and 5. It depends. Everything in law is it depends. Here, it is clear, I believe, that the officer used excessive force. There has to be some time for the investigation to take its course. He's not going to be fired. He is being disciplined. Tyreek is going to claim that he's been injured, but the injury is not going to be severe. The embarrassment, the inconvenience, the emotional distress of what happened could clearly be valued at $100,000 or more. And for Tyreek, who knows how much more would be paid to make it go away. Because it's not good for the Miami Police Department to have this cloud over its head. Tyreek is a beloved figure in South Florida, I assume, and he would not want to continue too much to have this hanging over his season because it would be a distraction, I think.
Right.
But certainly, there is a number that both sides would agree to. It would be resolved, I think, sooner than later, in my opinion.
Look at that smile on his face because he's thinking about the amount of money he would pocket. I mean, I love it. You are you know what? You're a gem, Carl. I fucking love you. I do.
Hey, thank you, Stugotz. Man, we go back for a long time. It's always a pleasure being with you and your guys.
It was good to see you guys. It really was.
Well, it's great to see you. We saw you for a second, and you gave me a quick hug. You said, I got to get the hell out of here. And you were mobbed by fans. I mean,
we had fun. It's always great being in the parking lot with the fans and doing that, let alone like doing a segment to open up the season with them around me. I couldn't hear myself. Somebody knocked me over a little bit in the middle of the segment and knocked me off balance. But it was awesome. It was an awesome night, and it was a great game. Of course, you guys saw it.
Yep, that was Billy, by the way, tried to knock you over.
Yeah, it probably was, right. Yeah, but, he's kind of soft, so it just barely knocked me over, right? So we know that.
Whoa. Oh,
yeah.
Dare you,
Yeah,
sir.
you heard that? Yeah, you're soft. That's right. Let's go.
PFD with Mike Florio, the Unbuttoned Podcast, Football Night in America. He's doing college football now. You're everywhere, Sims. You're doing college football. I love it.
I know. I'm everywhere is right. The last weekend was a lot, but NBC asked me to do some of the college football pregame for our Big Ten slate and all that. And it's a great opportunity. It's really cool to be a part of it, and I'm enjoying it. It's a little more work, that's for sure, but still all good. It really is. It's cool to do.
We'll get to the NFL in just a second. Texas, best team in the country. Oh my God, they're loaded, Chris.
We're loaded. We're real. I'm not going to say anybody's better than Georgia, right? Georgia's the best team in American sports for me over the last 3 years, right? That was like a disaster that they weren't in the Final Four last year. They lost one game in 3 years, and it was to the greatest coach and program in the history of football, and they didn't get in the final. So Georgia would be my one, but I think we're every bit in that class. I think the big thing with Texas, Stugotz, is just getting used to SEC football. Right? When you're in the Big 12, it's like, hey, we got to play Oklahoma, and then we're going to steamroll these next three teams. Are we going to win by 30 or win by 20? That's really all it comes down to. Now it's like, oh, no, you better be ready to play on a weekly basis here. You're not just going to steamroll everybody. You got to play pretty good quality football against everybody in the SEC if you want to win. And I think that's the only thing I worry about. But, damn, we look good is right. That is for real.
You really do. What do you make? Troy Aikman just came right out and said it. The quarterback play week 1 was awful. He said it was terrible across the board, and he attributes it to guys not showing up to training camp. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's some of that. I think it's lack of live reps in preseason football. I think it's all of it. I think it's the fact that you don't see the number one players, right? The starters out there on a consistent basis in a lot of these places. So yeah, it becomes like, hey, we're not on the same page. Hey, we haven't had enough reps together. Hey, our offensive line didn't communicate right against this blitz. We let that guy get free. So I think there's a lot of that goes on, let alone, I said this last year, and I believe this year. Right now, we're in a phase where the defensive coordinators are ahead of most of the offensive coordinators in football. And the offensive coordinators, minus a Shanahan and a McDaniel and some of those special guys, got to start thinking of other ways to attack. Defensive coordinators, for the most part, have figured out the formula for a lot of these bullshit offenses that are going on in the NFL. And that's where that's got to change. The attack and how they read the field, to me, is a big thing here right now. Like, right, just for a basic, simple example, right? Most teams in football now have copied some of the things New England have done, which they should, right? Because they dominated football for 20 years. But like a lot of the times in offensive football, before New England, teams would go, wait, if it's two deep, we're going to throw over to this side. If it's one deep, we're going to play the concept on this side. New England didn't play like that. New England went, wait, I want you to look over here and we're going to have a concept. And then we're going to make a concept over here that's going to come into your vision across the field so you can read it across the field and do that. Everybody in football does that now. And defensive coordinators play it to, hey, where the quarterback's eyes start, don't worry, everybody will come that way as he goes across the field, and some of that's got to change. These quarterbacks are too talented. The receivers are too good. You see Mahomes and Allen be able to look over here and have guys go the opposite direction on the other side, and they still flip the ball to the other side of the field. Even that's a no-no. And I think those are some of the things that got to change on the offensive side of the ball for a lot of these OCs.
How do you fix the slow start by these offenses? I mean, because we're not going to add more preseason time for these guys, but like, how does it actually get fixed?
I don't know if there's going to be a fix to this. I think we're going to have to get used to just seeing somewhat of a sloppy football to start a year, right? And September, teams kind of getting their bearings straight and all of that, and maybe being a little more simple like we see Cincinnati do every year. Let's be simple. Let's make sure we know what we do, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's so simple. They know what you're doing. So I don't know if there's a real fix here other than I think teams are maybe going to have to reevaluate how hard they push their offenses through training camp and get real reps and maybe do a little bit more live scrimmaging and stuff like that. But I think this is going to be something we're going to see here for some time.
Chris, I want to get your evaluation of the two rookie quarterbacks through week one. Caleb Williams first. I don't know if Caleb Williams had a bad game or if that offensive line is really, really bad.
Yeah, no, they had a bad game as an offense. Like, he wasn't perfect. I watched that film on Tuesday morning. It was one of the first things I wanted to watch. Here's the two things that I would say. He missed one or two throws, right, that you'd like to see him miss. You saw the highlight. He had Keenan Allen up the left sideline on an out and up one time, and he just let him too much, right? And you're going to miss some throws in football. But ultimately, you said it right, Stugotz. Their interior part of their O-line got their ass whooped by the Tennessee Titans. They steamrolled them. And he had a lot of pass plays where even watching the game on Sunday, I didn't give it enough credit for when I watched the film. I went, damn, he was under pressure more than I realized, let alone they couldn't run the ball. And then here's the big thing, Stugotz. They were too simple. They played he's a rookie. Right. Let's bring him along slow. Let's run our basic plays. And Tennessee was ready for it, and they were all over it. They didn't really ever give Caleb Williams a chance to attack. They ran the ball on first and second down on a lot of drives, and then it was like third and long, and it was like, hey, make something happen. And you know that's not an easy way to succeed. When they threw the ball on first down, he had success throughout the game. So I think this week they change because they know they're not going to beat the Houston Texans with training wheels on the offensive side of the ball. Right. If they want to play and be competitive in that game, they're going to have to open it up, and I think we see a different Caleb Williams this week. I'd be shocked if we don't.
You know, it's unfair to Caleb because he also had that pass that was right in Keenan Allen's hands. That
dropped
would have been
a touchdown.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So
next play was going to be a touchdown, too,
right.
And the left guard got run over. And as he was throwing it, he was going to throw another touchdown to Keenan Allen, and the ball got tipped. So, yeah, he got a little unlucky, but they got to play better as an offense and give him more of a chance, really.
Was that Will Levis pass, the pick six, the worst pass in NFL history?
Hey, a wise man once said, you never go full Tropic Thunder, and that was full Tropic Thunder right there. I don't know what other to say, all right? I mean, full Tropic Thunder. That was Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo-ish, right, at its best. I cannot believe he did it, and I love Callahan's quote. Did you see Callahan's quote on Monday, I believe?
No.
He literally said, well, I think if we just punted on first down the whole second half, we win the game. Which was like classic. It was so good.
Chris, is Deshaun Watson done?
I'm worried about it. He ain't the same. That's for sure. I mean, you guys know I do my quarterback rankings. You guys made my quarterback rankings famous. But I do it every year now because of that, right? Which is like a gift and a curse all at once. But at the same time, when
it's a curse you created, my man.
I know.
It's a curse because he's
blew
like,
it up. So you guys,
he's like, how do I slight Tua this year? Where do I put Tua?
Right. It's always a new angle on how I screw Tua over. That's all I worry about. But when I went back and did the rankings this year, when I watched back Deshaun Watson, I went, it's worse than I thought. It is. I mean, one, they call the game as if they don't trust him yet, right? And that's we're too deep in the career. Even last week, look at what they did last week. Like, hey, you're in trouble. Get in the shotgun, throw it around every play. Let's go. They're afraid to even do that because I don't think they know what he's going to do with the football. Is he going to get the protections right? Is he going to see the field right? Let alone the magic of Deshaun Watson's gone. Right? I mean, he was a few years ago, I looked at him as just, man, top 5 quarterback, any tough situation. The guy makes a play. He makes it happen. He's got magic, charisma. He's got it all. But I think all this off the field issues have gotten to his psyche, and then not playing for so long has certainly affected him. His throwing's not as good. His backyard extend plays is almost non-existent, let alone here we are with more problems this week. So, yeah. I think he's under tremendous pressure, and it's not been good, and I got to see it to believe it before I buy into the Browns on that side of the ball.
So slightly related and quick follow-up, but not really. How did people miss on Baker? Like, how is it that he bounced around from team to team?
Well, they took him number 1, Billy. I mean,
well, no, but so this isn't just Cleveland Browns specific. It's the fact that he was out there. It's that he went to the Panthers. It's that the Panthers traded him. It's that he ends up in Tampa, and then he fits. He can take your team potentially to the playoffs, right? And not just that, at a discount, because he's making what, $30 million a year, which is half of what quarterbacks are getting now.
Hey, Billy, you know, right? Like, Billy, we talk about this all the time. I mean, again, Mahomes, Allen, right? CJ Stroud, they can maybe make any offense work. Burrow, I get that. Most everybody else, though, needs a little help. And he went to the Jets, which, as we know, that's where quarterbacks start their careers to die before they even come alive. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there was that issue. He goes to Carolina. Hey, they were every bit as Billy. So, like, as I always say, when you're around everywhere, you start to smell and get on you. That's right. It, and you start to look not good. So he was in no situation to ever really that I would expect anybody to succeed. He went to the playoffs with the Browns, and then we held it against him that he was tough and a soldier and a baller and played with a bad shoulder. And it didn't go good, and everybody went, well, he's not good now. And that was not the case. So he's got a big-time arm. He sees the field well, and he's an aggressive decision maker. He fits what they want to do on the offensive side of the ball. I love what he's doing there. But this is, again, where, and this is why I like to do my quarterback rankings, Billy, separate. Sometimes we got to figure out how to separate team from player. And a lot of the times that crappy team affects player, and it's not the true picture of what the player actually is.
Is that what we're going to see with Sam Darnold also?
Tell me he's not good, Sims. Tell me he's not good.
Well, he is good. He's got more potential. He's got more potential to make that Minnesota offense look good than Kirk Cousins did. He's got more physical ability.
Wow.
His arm's stronger. He's got a quicker release. He moves better. They really can protect. I think the Vikings are one of the most best coached teams in all of football. We know Flores on the defensive side. He's one of the few guys in the game that can match wits with the Shanahan and the 49ers. So, yeah, Billy, I'm expecting like Minnesota fringe playoff team, maybe just misses out, but a big pain in the ass, and everybody's going to see what Sam Darnold's made of this year.